SHI has opened his stupid mouth yet again, this time in an interview that's come out this evening with the BBC. It's an interview where him and Matt Jackson are ultimately sat down speaking about the club, the current state of the club, the future of the club, and generally Rob Edwards' appointment and all the stuff surrounding that as well. So in this video, we're going to be breaking it down. It's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest, and hopefully you do agree with a lot of the points that I'm making in this video, because they are going to be relatively well thought out, also mixed with some passion and general sort of fan opinion as well. So if you do enjoy this video as well, there are 67% of you watch these videos who aren't subscribed. I'd very much appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button. Completely free. It's literally just under this video. Just press subscribe. It's free, costs you nothing, and it helps me out massively. I'm aiming hopefully to get 3,500 subscribers before the end of the year. We have not got long at all, by the way. We've got 20 days, but I do believe we can do it. So if you do like this video and want to see more of my content, I'd very much appreciate that. And let's get straight into this one. The interview starts, and straight away, Jeff's in there with some absolutely ridiculous opinions and, quite frankly, ridiculous statements. Now, he comes in, and basically the interview started speaking about the background staff at the club, really, and the interviewer obviously wants to know the players and that sort of thing, but she sort of twists the interview's question into speaking about the background staff at the club and that sort of thing, and he says, maybe it's the best in my 10 years of being there. Now, he said that he's galvanised a group of people, and it's probably the best chemistry he's ever seen in terms of the group. Now, yes, the background staff, of course, are very, very important to the club, and very much everything that the background staff do well should be applauded. I completely agree with that. I don't think, enough people get enough credit, and we don't know enough about some of the people that are pulling the strings every day and doing some stuff that, let's be honest, is quite positive, some of it. So I do think that maybe it's an interesting opinion to have, but let's be honest, the interviewer wanted to know exactly what he was talking about when he talks about the team and the overall sort of status of the club and what's going on inside the club, and she sort of twists it. He says that he wants the background of the team to grow for the next 2 or 3 years, and he hopes that Wolves achieve something soon. Now, Wolves have achieved things in the past, and where are they now? Wolves have achieved some ridiculous feats in the past under Nuno Espirito Santo, of course. Since then, not really, but semi-final of the FA Cup, and ultimately one of the most ridiculous games of football I've ever watched. You look at the Europa League runs, absolutely incredible. 7th 2 seasons as well, and generally playing some of the best football, and we're one of the most feared teams in the Premier League throughout that era. And everyone wants that back. Everyone wants that back. And of course, it's not realistic to have that back, which is actually quite mental that Jeff SHI then goes on to say, I have empathy for some fans because we used to be at some height for the FA Cup and in Europe and stuff like that. But when you reach that height, people, and fans don't want to let it go. That's essentially what he has said, almost word for word, to be honest. And that bit really frustrates me, to be honest. Of course, there are a section of the fan base and a portion of the fan base that are a bit younger and perhaps are a bit more naive and don't understand the cycle of football and don't understand how football works, that they think that Wolves can be there every year. They should be there, competing in Europa Leagues, competing at the very, very highest level against the biggest teams. But ultimately, it's not, it's never really been that. And to be honest, Jeff SHI basically comes out and says, you've all got your hopes up a bit too much there. You've all got a bit too excited. You all expect too much. Sorry. Wolves, as I've just said, were one of the most feared teams in the land, in the whole of English football and in Europe. They were absolutely battering teams like Torino, completely in the game against Sevilla, by the way, should have won the game. And generally, there's so many performances in games and massive moments. The Manchester United games, the Arsenal games, the Liverpool games, Manchester City games. They are one of the most feared teams in recent years, Wolverhampton Wanderers were. And even in the years when it wasn't so good, they'd get results against City or, the 3-0 against Liverpool, for example, as well. And generally, Wolves have always been that since they came back to the Premier League. Now, SHI has got the argument as well later in the interview where he basically goes on to say that, Wolves were not known as a Premier League club before Fosun took over. That is a completely ridiculous lie and a blatant mistake. And if he's meant that, and if he hasn't just said that, off the top of his head, and maybe it's been lost in translation, then that is mental. I just don't understand it. I don't understand how that works. Now, the fact that he goes on to say throughout the interview that they're planning for 10 years, they've got a 10-year plan, and he says that, if I can leave Wolves in a position in 10 to 20, after 10 to 20 years of being at the club, then that's what I want to be able to say and want fans to say about me when I leave that I've left them in a very strong position. You have done absolutely nothing, mate. You know nothing about football whatsoever. You're in a role that requires you to know a hell of a lot about football in the first place. How on earth you've managed that role is quite frankly mental. It's like saying, oh, Connor makes YouTube videos on Wolves. We may as well just put him in the scouting team. Sorry? What? It makes absolutely no sense. You should not be in the job. You're underqualified. You've been underqualified for years. And you're coming in acting like you're one of the reasons that Wolves are where they are. You've contributed absolutely nothing positive. You've decided to push esports at every opportunity. You've then got esports teams with West Bromwich on them, which is embarrassing enough. And that's one of the minuscule issues of you and Fosun, to be quite honest. And you're an absolute disgrace because this interview, if I'm being completely honest, is a joke. Some of the things he said are absolutely mental. He's acting like it's going to be a new cycle and there's a massive positive thing on the horizon. Wolves have got 2 points and are pretty much nailed on for relegation. And you're sat here going, oh, it's going to be positive. We're going to have a really positive 5-10 years. The background staff, there's a great harmony, a great connection there. Means nothing. You're going to go down. You're going to be the reason that Wolves go down. You and Fosun, this ownership, are going to be the reason that Wolves do go down. And yes, there's still a happy clapping section of the fan base that go, we wouldn't be here without Fosun. We wouldn't be here without Jeff SHI. Well, that may be right, but you're going to be exactly where you started. It's going to be a 10-year period where you've started in the Championship and you've ended in the Championship with some absolutely massive highs in between. And Wolves have not, just the overall sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? The overall sort of mantra of this ownership and of Jeff SHI has been, let's just settle. We'll get a few players in and we'll just continue replacing them on that conveyor belt. But it doesn't work. It does not work. It can only work for so long. You can sell your Neveses, you can sell your Netos, you can sell your Cunhas, you can sell your Eight Nouris, you can lose your Nelson Semedos because of the direction that everyone in the club can see where it's going. Nelson Semedo's left. Pablo Sarabia's left. Players have left that, let's be honest, have contributed a hell of a lot to this club and they have not been adequately replaced. And the amount of players that they've left and haven't been adequately replaced is mental. I mean, Raul Jimenez was replaced for 1 year in Jürgen Strand Larsen. How many years later did it take to replace him? And that's just one of the many reasons in all these positions. You look at some of the replacements in the side now as well. Jackson Chachua looks like he's never kicked a ball, to be quite honest. No confidence in him whatsoever. Miles off the level of Semedo, a player that's played Champions League for years. He's played at the highest level at Barcelona. He's played at Benfica. He's played at Wolves in the Premier League for so long and has captained the club. You've got, on the opposite side, Eight Nouri leaves, a player that's contributed so much going forward to Wolves over the last few years. You're replacing him with David Muller-Wolfer, who actually has been one of the better performers in the last few weeks. And Hugo Bueno has been at the club for a long time, but just isn't nowhere near the level of Eight Nouri, and to be quite honest, there's not many that are. And then you look at the midfielders, I mean, João Moutinho, no one's replaced him. I mean, Mario Lamine, you could argue, maybe João Gomez and Andre, but completely different footballers, all three of them, or all four of them in their own right in terms of what they had to a side. And, João Moutinho was a metronome for a side. He was, completely controlled games against the biggest and toughest of opposition in a midfield where he wasn't, him and Neves weren't the best physical athletes, but my God, could they dominate a game and control a tempo and stuff like that. And none of them have been replaced. And just generally, every position has been downgraded significantly. Rui Patricio, who is his replacement? Jose Sarr. He's not good enough. Who's going to come in for him? Sam Johnston. It's all just absolutely mental. The decisions from top to bottom have been absolutely nowhere near good enough. Now, in terms of moving away slightly from a rant, I think in terms of Matt Jackson, I think, to be quite honest, he may as well just be Robin and Jeff SHI's Batman. He just sits in that interview. And the way he speaks, he's just echoing everything Jeff SHI said. Now, Wolves fans are rightly on Jeff SHI's back. So where does Matt Jackson think that that's going to get him with the Wolves fan base? They're not going to, be loving of him and appreciate what he's doing as a role. Obviously, he comes in this interview and basically says that he has replaced Domenico Tetti. He used to oversee general sort of stuff with regards to recruitment, but nowhere near the level that he is now. And he used to oversee a lot of the other stuff, and women's and academy programs are a lot more sort of his thing back then. But now he oversees the entire program. He works closely with SHI and with Rob Edwards, and he recognises that Wolves are in a tough time. Now, if this is a tough time, I mean, that is an understatement. they're going to go down as the most embarrassing team in Premier League history. I think it's a bit more than a tough time, to be quite honest, but I will move on from that because, let's be honest, there's absolutely loads we could talk about, and we are going to talk about it in this video quickly as well. Now, the thing that is one of the most mental things I think I've ever seen is Jeff Shi's asked the question, is relegation financially disastrous for Wolves? Now, prior to this in the interview, he's essentially speaking about how Wolves are in a great place financially. They're set to make profit for 2 years in a row. Because you sold all your players, mate. You sold all your best players, so obviously you're going to profit as a club. But anyway, they've essentially goes, I feel relegation or staying up is kind of a technical word. Well, no. Staying up's pretty straightforward, and going down's pretty straightforward to me. You know, call me no footballing genius. But if you go down, it's a bad thing, and if you stay up, it's a good thing. Anyway, he then goes on to say that people try to emphasise the importance of relegation or staying up. Inside the club, it's not as serious as it is, or as it seems on the outside from the fan base, which again is absolutely mental. Jeff Shi does not give one toss about any of the fans that Wolves have. Absolutely none. That's why he then, you know, in that interview says that I have empathy for some of the fans. I mean, it is disgusting. And in this video, so sorry if I'm getting a bit frustrated with regards to sort of losing track of points, but it is one of them where I'm genuinely just finished watching the interview and it boils my blood, some of the things I'm seeing. It's quite frankly inexcusable. But then he goes, it's not really a weighty thing for us, relegation or staying up. If we go down, we don't want to panic. Well, every single club, and as Taylor goes on to say in the interview, most clubs that go down in recent years have struggled. And not, you know, some of them have got exceptions, you know, your Burnleys and your Leeds have been back. But you look at Luton, for example, under Rob Edwards, they go down, then they go down again. The clubs have been known to do a double relegation. Wolves have done it themselves. There's plenty of clubs that have done it, and there's plenty of reasons for the fan base to feel how they do. And the reason that fan bases protest against owners and protest against chairmen is because they feel that there's something inherently wrong with your job or the job that the owner's doing. And you are not a footballing man. You're saying in the interview, oh, football is not a straightforward business. Football's not this, football's not that. You know nothing about football. You've been in it for 10 years and you know nothing about it. You're coming out saying that Nuno's lucky to get where Wolves got and that it was essentially a fluke. Sorry. It's mental now. As I say, you know, emphasising that relegation is not important genuinely might be one of the most mental things that a chairman can come out and say. And, it sounds like maybe you might think I'm saying that and it's doing him a disservice, but it almost is word for word what he says. And generally, I think it's an absolute disgrace. I think when you look at some of the things he says in that interview, one of the things he says towards the end of the interview, he goes, oh, Wolves are not an easy team to make known around the world. Well, the last time I checked, they're one of the founding fathers of English football. And they're part of the reason that European football exists. Not to mention, you've said how much you're doing overseas for the marketing. You've said how much you're going to do and push Wolves out into Asian markets, out into other markets. So if Wolves aren't an easy club to grow globally, and that's the one thing you're meant to be good at is business, what does that say about you? What does that say about you in your role? You're underqualified and you're saying that you were going to grow Wolves to this global brand. But now he's coming out and saying and backtracking and going, oh, it's not easy. So you're not doing your job properly, are you? Not just when it comes to football, not just when it comes to recruitment, not just when it comes to the stadium that's been needed to be done for a ridiculous amount of time, which you did speak about briefly, saying that the Steve Ball's going to need to be done. I walk past there every day. And in October, they were doing the stand. They were painting the top of the Steve Ball stand. They've painted 1/3 of that stand. If you go past, you'll have seen it. If you go on a match day, you'll have seen it. 1/3 of the stand is painted. The other 2/3 they haven't bothered with. And all the windows, I mean, half of them are boarded up. You wouldn't think that's a Premier League club. And let's be honest, it's not going to be for long, to be honest, given the fact that Jeffrey Shi is in charge of everything that seems to go on at Wolves. But overall, it's the most ridiculous interview he's ever done. And he's done some really bad ones. He's done some awful ones saying that Nuno was lucky. But this takes the biscuit for being the worst. He's an absolute disgrace. And there's absolutely no way that Wolves fans should not be protesting. Every single one of you who protested against this ownership, and that chairman, I have an infinite amount of respect for you. Anyone else that was sat there happy clapping, you can do what you like for all I care. But I absolutely feel as strongly as a lot of you that are protesting against this ownership, because every single point you have to protest against him is valid. And the fact that he just sits there watching the protest and gets his assistants or whatever it might be to shut the curtains on the weekend, he is a joke. He can't face fans head on, so he sits in an interview room, or he goes through the club where it's all going to be, it's all PR driven and we can cut anything we want out. We can cut things that make you look bad out. The BBC didn't do that tonight, in fairness to them. And I think Taylor actually did press him well on a lot of the points that he did try to make. But generally, he is an absolute disgrace, and it's a really frustrating one for me, who's not even a Wolves fan, to sit there and listen to. It's an absolute disgrace, and I can only imagine how all of you feel watching that, saying that Wolves are not a Premier League club, not an established club. They're not an easy club to grow globally. They've got one of the most eye-catching badges that you can see in the whole of world football. They've got a unique, story behind them. They've got an incredible story behind them as a club, an incredible history. And you're telling me that you can't grow Wolves globally, but you could a few years ago. But as long as they're all sitting there doing this, playing the Xbox or whatever it might be with your esports, that's fine, Jeff. But there's absolutely no way that you should be in charge of any of the operations going on at Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club, in my personal opinion. Now, if you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would let me know what you think about the ownership and Jeffrey SHI as well in the comments. Let me know what you think about this video as well. I hope it wasn't too much of a rant, but it genuinely is a really frustrating one to see a club that I've grown up supporting, all my family support. A lot of my family support them, and I don't support them directly, but I see how much my family are affected by results and affected by games and decisions that are being made. And my granddad's been a Wolves fan ever since he was a young lad, been going for a ridiculous amount of years, and he's seen it all. He's seen the Batty brothers, he's seen it get worse, he's seen it get better. But my God, it's going only one way at the minute. It's going straight down here. So if you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate you doing all those things. Like I said, like the video as well. Let me know your thoughts on the ownership and Jeff SHI. I hope it's not too much of a rant, because the last one was as well. But I will see you all in the next one.